Emily Carter, 34 years old, used to believe there were certain wounds a family could never give you. A stranger could humiliate you. A boss could underestimate you. A friend could disappoint you. But family, real family, was supposed to know where the softest parts of you were and protect them. Mine knew exactly where they were. They just pressed harder. "Just make sure you're not around when we leave for Italy," my younger brother said over dinner, as casually as if he were asking someone to pass the salt. "It would be awkward if you tried to tag along." For a second, I thought I had misheard him. The dining room went too quiet. My fork hovered over my plate. Across from me, my mother didn't blink. My father lowered his wine glass, not shocked, not confused, just waiting to see how I would take it. My older sister Lauren was already looking down at her phone, scrolling through swimsuit photos, like my face wasn't falling apart in front of everyone. Then my mother gave me that soft, careful smile she used whenever she wanted cruelty to sound reasonable. "Emily," she said, "it's just not really your place anymore. My place." The words landed strangely, because I was the one who had paid for everything. 3 weeks earlier, I had gotten the promotion I had worked toward for almost a decade. Senior director, new salary, bonus structure, the kind of job title that made people suddenly speak to you like your opinion had weight. I didn't tell my family right away. I wanted to surprise them. For years, I had been the dependable daughter, the one who answered late-night calls, the one who transferred money without asking too many questions, the one who remembered birthdays, paid emergency bills, helped Lauren with childcare, covered rent gaps for my brother, and quietly handled property taxes my parents pretended didn't exist. So when the promotion came, I thought maybe this was my chance to change the story. I booked Italy. Florence, Rome, Venice, first-class flights, beautiful hotels, private car service, everything paid in full. I imagined my mother crying, my father clapping me on the shoulder and saying he was proud, Lauren hugging me, my brother maybe pretending not to be impressed, but smiling anyway. That was the fantasy I carried into my parents' house that Friday night. I arrived with wine, flowers, and a stupid, hopeful grin. The evening smelled like roasted chicken, garlic, and my mother's lavender candles. It felt familiar enough to trick me. For the first 20 minutes, I let myself believe good things were possible. Then I told them. "I booked us a family trip to Italy," I said, trying not to smile too hard. "All of us. Everything's covered." My mother's eyebrows lifted. "That's generous of you."
Generous.
Not wonderful. Not thank you. Not how did you manage that? Lauren immediately asked, "Can I bring Mia?" My father stared at me like he was doing math in his head. And Tyler, my younger brother, leaned back in his chair, poured more wine, and said the sentence that cut the final thread. "Just make sure you're not around when we leave." I waited for laughter. None came. My mother folded her napkin. "This trip could be good for us. Your father and I, Lauren, Tyler, we need time together. You have your own life now." "My own life," I repeated. Lauren didn't look up. "Don't make it weird, Em." Something inside me became very still. Not angry. Not yet. Just clear. I lifted my glass. Understood. They actually clinked glasses with me. My father started talking about gelato. Lauren showed Mom a dress she wanted to buy. Tyler joked about Italian women. Nobody asked what I meant. Nobody noticed my hands had stopped shaking. That night, I drove back to my apartment in silence. I didn't cry in the car. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up the confirmation emails. One by one, I canceled everything. Flights, hotels, car service, special tours, dinner reservations. Gone. 15 minutes. That was all it took to erase the dream I had spent weeks building for people who had already erased me from it. The next morning, the family group chat was full of packing talk. "Do you think white linen pants are too obvious for Italy?"
"I'm not checking luggage."
"Everyone make sure passports are ready."
"How early do we need to be at the airport?"
No apology. No hesitation. No one asked if I was okay. 2 days later, they went to the airport dressed like people who had earned a vacation. Lauren posted a selfie in front of the terminal with the caption, "Ciao, baby." I was making coffee when the first text came in. "Fix this now." I looked at it for a long moment. Then another. "Lauren, why are our tickets canceled?" Tyler, "Emily, are you serious?" "Mom, call us immediately. This is not funny." I opened the airline app. 4 tickets voided. Denied check-in. I could almost picture them at the counter, voices rising, luggage lined up beside them, my mother trying to look dignified while panic crawled across her face. I waited. Then I typed one message. It's just not your place anymore. For almost a full minute, nothing. Then the group chat exploded. Lauren said I had ruined her year. Tyler called me unstable. My mother accused me of planning the humiliation from the beginning. My father wrote only one sentence. You embarrass this family. I stared at those words and laughed once, quietly. Because for the first time, I realized something. They weren't angry because I had hurt them. They were angry because I had stopped paying for the privilege of being hurt. By noon, my father called. I let it ring twice. On the third call, I answered. You made us look like fools, he snapped. I said nothing. At an international check-in counter, Emily, do you have any idea how humiliating that was? Still nothing. You think this is funny? I looked around my apartment. The apartment they had mocked. The apartment where I had spent years working late, saving carefully, saying no to myself so I could keep saying yes to them. Then I hung up. That afternoon, I logged into my bank account. Lauren's monthly transfer was first. $1,100. Gone. The card attached to my account, the one she used for groceries, childcare extras, and whatever else she decided was my responsibility, disabled. Then I called the dealership. The white SUV in my parents' driveway was under my name. By 3 o'clock, it was gone. By 5, I contacted Tyler's landlord. The lease was in my name. He hadn't paid a cent in months. I gave notice. 30 days. That night, the messages changed. Mom, let's be rational. Lauren, please, I have no way to pay the nanny now. Tyler, I'll figure something out, but what you did was messed up. Still no apology. Not one. Only fear. Only panic. Only the sound of people discovering the floor beneath them had always been my back. I placed my phone face down and sat in the quiet. For years, I thought love meant staying useful. That night, I finally understood the truth. They hadn't lost a daughter. They had lost access. And they were only just beginning to realize it. Lauren showed up at my apartment the next morning at 8:12 sharp. I knew it was her before she even started pounding on the door. Emily, she shouted from the hallway. Open the damn door! I stayed in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a mug of coffee warming my hands. Outside, rain streaked across the windows in thin silver lines, blurring the city into something cold and distant. Emily, this isn't funny anymore! Her fist slammed against the door again. You don't just cut off your family because your feelings got hurt. My feelings. The phrase almost made me smile. Not because it was funny, but because it was so painfully predictable. To Lauren, everything was always dramatic when it happened to her and insignificant when it happened to anyone else. I listened quietly while she spiraled. You've completely lost your mind, she yelled. The nanny quit this morning because she thinks I can't pay her now. There it was. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I shouldn't have treated you that way. Just consequences. Eventually, her footsteps stormed down the hallway. A car door slammed outside. A minute later, my phone exploded with messages. Congrats! The nanny walked out. Do you feel powerful now? All this because of one dinner conversation? You need serious help. I didn't answer. Instead, I reopened my banking app and confirmed every canceled transfer. Permanent. The silence afterward felt strange, heavy. But underneath it, something unfamiliar was beginning to grow. Relief. For years, every conversation with my family had carried an invisible invoice attached to it. Every interaction eventually circled back to what I could provide, solve, cover, or absorb. And now? Nothing. No one asking for money. No one pretending affection before sliding into a favor. Just quiet. Around noon, my father called again. Voicemail this time. I let it play on speaker while I cleaned the kitchen. Emily, he began, his voice clipped and tired. Your mother's very upset. Not, we hurt you. Not, we were wrong. Your mother's upset. I'm trying to keep this family together, he continued. But you're putting us in a position we never imagined being in. I dried a plate slowly. Then came the part that made me stop moving. We thought this trip could heal some distance between us, he said. You overreacted. Overreacted. My chest tightened. Not with sadness this time, but clarity. Because suddenly I could see the pattern stretching backward through my entire life. Every insult minimized. Every boundary mocked. Every sacrifice expected. And every time I finally cracked under the weight of it, they called it an overreaction. His voice lowered. You should think carefully before burning bridges, Emily. One day, you may need your family again. I saved the voicemail. Not because it hurt, because I never wanted to forget exactly who they were when they lost control of me. Later that afternoon, my mother tried a softer approach. Her text came through while I was working. Mom, can we meet? Just talk. I feel like everyone's saying things they don't mean. 3 minutes later, she left a voicemail nearly 4 minutes long. She sounded exhausted, fragile even. Sweetheart, she whispered, family isn't something you can opt out of because your feelings are hurt. There it was again. Not betrayal. Not humiliation. Just my feelings. If you needed space, fine, she continued. But cutting everyone off financially? That's spiteful. This isn't who you are. I sat back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. No, it wasn't who I used to be. That version of me had spent years trying to earn love from people who treated affection like a subscription service. Pay monthly or lose access. I didn't answer her either. By the third day, the silence became eerie. No calls. No messages. No guilt trips. Nothing. At first, I thought maybe they had finally accepted reality. Then, Thursday morning arrived. At 10:07 a.m., HR called me into a private meeting. The moment I heard the word complaint, my stomach tightened. The HR representative, a calm woman named Denise, folded her hands carefully across the table. We received an anonymous ethics report, she said. It alleges misuse of company funds. I blinked once. What kind of misuse? She slid printed pages across the table. My blood ran cold. Someone had submitted fabricated invoices claiming I used company reimbursement accounts to fund the Italy vacation. There were fake screenshots, forged approval memos, even altered expense reports linking the trip to a supposed executive retreat. For one terrible second, I couldn't breathe. Not because I was guilty, because I knew exactly who had done it. Lauren. Or Tyler. Maybe both. The documents were sloppy, though. Names misspelled, formatting inconsistent. One executive listed in the memo had retired 2 years earlier. Denise looked at me carefully. Honestly, Emily, the paperwork looked suspicious almost immediately, but we still had to investigate. I forced myself to nod calmly. I understand. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, I was officially cleared. Every expense I'd ever filed matched perfectly. Every account checked out. But that wasn't the point. The point was that my family had crossed a line even I hadn't imagined. This wasn't anger anymore. This was sabotage. They wanted to punish me for leaving the role they assigned me. And suddenly, every memory from the last few years started rearranging itself in my mind like puzzle pieces finally snapping together. The constant guilt. The jokes at my expense. The way Lauren used to say, well, Emily's got it, anytime a bill appeared. The way my mother called me reliable instead of loving. The way Tyler only contacted me when he needed something. I had mistaken dependency for closeness. At 4:18 p.m., I sent Lauren a single text. Solid attempt. Next time, spell the VP's name correctly. She replied 11 minutes later. I have no idea what you're talking about. You always think everyone's attacking you. Honestly, it's unhealthy. Let me know when you're ready to act like an adult. I stared at the screen and laughed softly. Act like an adult. The woman who used my bank account like a personal allowance was lecturing me about maturity. I was still shaking my head when the doorbell rang. This time, when I opened the door, I found someone I didn't recognize. A woman in her late 30s stood there, holding a small boy against her hip. She looked exhausted, nervous. Are you Emily? She asked quietly. Yes. I'm Clara. I used to work for your sister. The nanny. I stepped aside immediately. She didn't come in. Instead, she handed me a flash drive. I didn't know if I should bring this, she admitted, but after everything that happened, I thought you deserved to know. A chill slid through me. What is it? Clara hesitated. Your family talks more when they think employees are invisible. My stomach dropped. She lied about you constantly, Clara continued. All of them did. I looked down at the tiny black flash drive resting in my palm. Suddenly, it felt heavier than metal. Heavier than years. I don't want money, Clara said quickly when I reached for my wallet. I just couldn't keep pretending I didn't hear it. Then she left. I locked the door behind her and stood motionless in the middle of my apartment. Outside, thunder rolled faintly across the skyline. For several long seconds, I just stared at the flash drive. Something deep inside me already knew this was going to change everything. And somehow, even after the airport, the sabotage, and the betrayal, I still wasn't prepared for how ugly the truth really was. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop just after midnight. The apartment was dark, except for the glow of the screen and the city lights bleeding through the windows. Rain still tapped softly against the glass, steady and cold, like the night itself was warning me not to keep going. I should have waited until morning. Instead, I opened the folder. Audio files, screenshots, videos, photos. Dozens of them. At first, I thought maybe I was misunderstanding what I was looking at. My brain kept trying to soften it, reinterpret it into something less cruel. Then I clicked the first recording. Lauren's voice filled the room immediately. "Oh, please," she laughed. "Emily acts like buying things makes her some kind of saint." Another woman laughed in the background. Lauren continued. "You just have to guilt trip her a little. She always folds." My chest tightened. I clicked another file. This time it was my mother. "She needs to feel needed," Mom said calmly. "That's why she keeps paying for everything." Someone asked, "What if she stops?" My mother actually laughed. "She won't. Emily doesn't have the spine." I froze. The sound of my mother saying that, so casually, so confidently, hurt more than the dinner ever did. Because it meant this wasn't impulsive. It wasn't one bad night. It was how they had always seen me. I kept going. There were screenshots from group chats I wasn't part of. Lauren sending photos of my apartment with captions like, "Look whose bonus paid for our summer. Miss ATM Queen herself. As long as Emily's lonely, we're covered." Tyler replied to one of them. "Just keep her emotionally attached. Works every time." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then came another audio clip. Lauren again. "We never actually wanted her on the Italy trip," she said. "Mom thought she'd make everything awkward. She gets all emotional and weird whenever she wants appreciation." Someone asked, laughing, "Then why let her pay for it?" Lauren answered instantly, "Because she already offered." The room around me suddenly felt smaller. I pressed pause and stood up too quickly, pacing toward the kitchen like movement could somehow force air back into my lungs. My hands were shaking now. Not from rage, from grief. Because part of me, some stupid, hopeful part, had still believed there was love underneath all this. Dysfunctional love, maybe. Selfish love. But still love. Instead, I was listening to people dissect me like a financial strategy. I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. Memory after memory started replaying differently now. Lauren crying because daycare was impossible to afford. Tyler promising he'd pay me back soon. My father saying I was the dependable one. My mother calling me her strong girl whenever she needed something. It had never been affection. It was maintenance. I returned slowly to the laptop. The deeper I went, the uglier it became. There were photos secretly taken inside my apartment while my family visited. Pictures of my office setup, my closet, my kitchen. Lauren had captioned one photo, "This place screams emotionally unavailable." Another, "No wonder she throws money at people. Imagine coming home to this every night." Then I found the folder labeled Work. Inside was a draft email addressed to my company. False harassment accusations, claims I created a toxic environment, fabricated stories about abuse of authority. A version had been edited just 8 days before the Italy dinner. 8 days. That meant while I was booking first-class tickets for them, they were preparing ways to destroy me if they ever needed leverage. I sat there for a long time without moving. The city outside faded into silence. At some point, my coffee went cold beside me, and somewhere around 1:40 in the morning, something inside me finally broke loose. Not dramatically, not loudly, quietly, like a chain snapping. I copied every file onto an encrypted drive. Then I organized everything carefully. Dates, names, backups, receipts. The calmness in my body scared me more than anger would have, because I realized I was done hoping. At 1:43 a.m., I sent Lauren a message. "I know everything." That was it. No threat, no explanation, just 4 words. She didn't respond. But my mother did. "Mom, please stop." I stared at the message. Not "please forgive us," not "we were wrong." Please stop. Like the real problem wasn't what they had done. The problem was that I finally knew. The next week passed in almost complete silence. No calls, no screaming, no emotional ambushes. It felt less like peace and more like fear. They knew I had the files now. And for the first time in our lives, I had something they couldn't manipulate away. Tyler cracked first. An eviction notice apparently finally reached him after I removed myself from the lease. Instead of apologizing or figuring his life out, he filed a ridiculous handwritten lawsuit claiming I caused him emotional trauma and housing instability. He demanded 6 months of future rent compensation. I laughed so hard when my lawyer showed me the paperwork that I actually had to sit down. The judge dismissed it almost immediately. A few days later, Tyler appeared outside my building. I watched him from my living room window. He paced back and forth on the sidewalk, yelling into his phone. His face was red with frustration, his movements jerky and frantic. Then suddenly, he stopped. Slowly, he looked up toward my apartment window. For a second, our eyes met through the glass, and the expression on his face startled me. Not hatred, confusion. Like he genuinely didn't recognize the person I had become. The woman standing behind the glass wasn't the Emily who cleaned up his messes anymore. She wasn't scared of losing them. That terrified him. He left without another word. That same night, Lauren finally broke. Her message came at 11:27 p.m. Long, messy, desperate. Lauren. Emily, I'm sorry. I know I messed up. Lauren. We all said horrible things. I never meant for this to go this far. You've always been the strong one in this family. I miss you. Can we please just meet and talk? I read it twice, then archived it. Because even now, buried under all the apologies, she still hadn't actually understood. The strongest person in the family shouldn't have been the one everyone fed on. The next morning, I met with my lawyer. We reviewed everything connected to my family, every shared account, every lingering authorization, every financial tie. The SUV, the old insurance policies, tax payments on my parents' property, power of attorney permissions my father still had access to from years ago. One by one, I severed them all. Cleanly, legally, permanently. As signatures dried across stacks of paperwork, I felt something strange settle over me. Not revenge, not triumph. Absence. Like I had spent my entire life carrying a weight I no longer noticed until someone finally removed it. And as my family scrambled to survive without the systems I had quietly built beneath them, one truth became impossible to ignore. They weren't terrified because I hated them. They were terrified because I no longer needed them to love me back. It's been a little over 3 months since the night everything finally collapsed. At first, I kept expecting another explosion. Another voicemail from my father, demanding respect. Another manipulative apology from my mother. Another dramatic paragraph from Lauren about how family should stick together. But eventually, the noise faded, then disappeared completely. Silence, I learned, has different textures. There's the silence of punishment. The silence people use to make you anxious enough to come crawling back. And then there's the silence that comes after a door finally closes for good. That second kind is quieter. Cleaner. I wake up earlier now. Not because someone needs something from me, but because I actually sleep through the night for the first time in years. I cook real meals again instead of ordering takeout between stress calls. I started taking evening walks after work, headphones in, hands in my coat pockets, letting myself move slowly through the city without checking my phone every 5 minutes. My apartment feels different too. Lighter. I took down the old family photos one Saturday afternoon. That part hurt more than I expected. There was one picture of all of us at a beach years ago. Lauren leaning against me, Tyler grinning at the camera, my mother's arm wrapped around my shoulders. For a few seconds, I just stared at it. Because the hardest part wasn't accepting who they became. It was wondering if they had ever truly been the people I remembered at all. I put the frame in a box and slid it into the back of my closet. Then I replaced it with photographs from trips I actually enjoyed, friends who laughed with me instead of at me, moments where I wasn't paying for permission to belong. Lauren tried the longest to keep some kind of connection alive. Her messages changed over time. At first, they were emotional. Then nostalgic. Then strangely cheerful, like she was trying to skip over reality entirely. One day, she sent me a photo of her daughter finger painting at daycare. No caption. Just the picture. A week later came another message. I've been reflecting a lot. I know we both made mistakes. Maybe someday we can start over. Start over. I stared at those words for a long time. Because people like Lauren always believed relationships reset automatically with enough time. Like betrayal expired if you waited long enough to stop talking about it. But some things don't reset. Some things reveal. And once you've seen the truth clearly, you can't force yourself blind again. I archived that message too. Tyler disappeared faster. Apparently, after losing the apartment, he bounced between friends' couches, trying to sell sneakers and electronics online for cash. A mutual acquaintance mentioned it casually over drinks one evening, waiting for me to react. I didn't. For the first time in my life, Tyler's disasters weren't mine to absorb. My mother made one final attempt. An actual handwritten letter. When I saw the envelope in my mailbox, my stomach twisted before I even opened it. Her handwriting alone could still trigger something inside me after all these years. The letter started gently. "Emily, I know you're hurting." Then came the excuses. Families argue. Nobody's perfect. Things were said in anger. And then, near the end, one sentence stopped me cold. "You were never supposed to take it so personally." I read that line 3 times. Not supposed to. As if humiliation should have rolled off me. As if betrayal only became real because I reacted incorrectly. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back inside the envelope. Then I threw it away. My father never contacted me again. No calls. No apology. Nothing. I heard through relatives that he tells people I abandoned the family after a misunderstanding. Apparently, I'm arrogant now. Cold. Ungrateful. Money changed me. Funny. Money didn't change me. Money just removed their ability to control me. That's what they couldn't forgive. They never talk about the recordings. Or the fake reports sent to my company. Or the jokes about me being an ATM. That part conveniently disappears from their version of events. But honestly, I don't care anymore. Because the strange thing about finally seeing people clearly is that you stop craving their approval. A few close friends know the full story now. Whenever I tell them, the reaction is always the same. Horrified silence, followed by some variation of, "I can't believe you lived like that." But I can. Because dysfunction doesn't arrive all at once. It happens slowly. A favor here. A guilt trip there. A joke that cuts slightly too deep. A sacrifice that becomes expected. Until one day you realize you've spent years shrinking yourself to keep everyone else comfortable. And the worst part? You call it love while it's happening. Sometimes I still catch myself reaching for my phone on instinct. Especially on Sundays. That used to be family day. Calls, obligations, emotional maintenance disguised as closeness. Now the phone stays silent. And instead of loneliness, I feel peace. Real peace. The kind that doesn't demand anything from you in return. 3 weeks ago, I finalized the last remaining financial separation tied to my parents' property taxes. The confirmation email came through while I was sitting on my balcony drinking coffee. I remember staring at the screen for a long moment after reading it. That was it. No more hidden ties. No more quiet responsibilities. No more invisible strings connecting my life to theirs. Completely done. I expected grief. Instead, I felt light. Like someone had unlocked a cage I forgot I was standing inside. People think endings are always dramatic. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes the biggest ending of your life sounds like nothing at all. No screaming. No final confrontation. Just the quiet realization that you no longer miss people who only loved the version of you they could use. I've deleted their numbers now. Blocked the remaining emails. Closed every open door. Not because I hate them. Because I finally love myself enough not to reopen wounds just because they're familiar. For most of my life, I thought being a good daughter meant enduring anything. Now I understand something different. Love without respect becomes survival. Family without care becomes obligation. And forgiveness without change becomes permission. I spent years trying to earn softness from people who only valued access. Now they live without me. And I live without the constant ache of trying to be enough for people who decided long ago that I only mattered when I was useful. They hate me for leaving. But the truth is, I didn't destroy the family. I just stopped financing the illusion of one.